All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, good day, everyone, and welcome. I am Nicole Jackson, Director of Education for Center for Engagement, Environmental Justice, and Health, better known as CEGE. It is my honor today to welcome you to our Climate Justice Fellows Final Assignment Showcase. Launched in 2023, this is a virtual program that educates individuals on environmental and climate justice, empowering fellows with deep ties to frontline communities and address local changes. Fellows progress through an intensive 10 to 13-week module curriculum, culminating in capstone or technical assistance projects. Having been a fellow and senior fellow myself, I am proud to have redesigned the program this year to be more practical and global oriented. We centered everything on real world applications through our empowerment science frameworks, and that's empowerment spelled INPOWERMENT. Empowerment science frameworks, which include community based participatory research, citizen science, and the collaborative problem solving model. Fellows engage with assignments rooted in actual case studies tailored to their community specific needs. The philosophy culminates today in today's final assignment. In a significant shift, we challenge fellows to proactively develop their own initiatives, moving beyond traditional capstone projects. They also gained hands-on experience working with Siege staff directly on technical projects, from policy analysis to air quality monitoring. This practice-based model was implemented on a larger scale than in prior years, and it helped us to expand our fellowship across a global network for the first time. And we were thrilled to welcome a diverse group, a diverse cohort of fellows from across 16 different countries. And doing so helped us enrich not only our discussions, but broaden our understanding on how we're all in our communities are interconnected throughout the globe. So today we're going to hear from two fellows, Mia Delano and Dionna Brown. Mia will speak first and then followed by Dionna. So Mia is an epidemiology research project manager based in Nashville, Tennessee. She holds a master's in public health and environmental health and has a diverse background in climate and health research, from studying oceans acidification in Hawaii to managing the COVID-19 response for vulnerable populations in Colorado. Her current work focuses on the links between environmental exposures and health outcomes in environmentally separated communities from the South. Mia is committed to bringing scientific research and community action to advance climate and health justice. So, without further ado, let's welcome Mia.
Thank you, Nicole. Can you just confirm that you can see and hear me and it's not too laggy? Okay. Okay, I'm a little nervous. I might have to turn my camera off when I start sharing my screen, so please just let me know if it starts to become too laggy. I'm trying to share my screen and it says that's disabled.
Oh, I apologize for that. There you go.
No
You should
problem.
be able to share now.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna get started, and again, if it gets laggy, just let me know and I'll turn my screen off. But otherwise, it's nice to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm going to talk today about a disaster recovery and resilience plan for flooding in North Nashville, Tennessee. So just to go over the agenda, first I'll talk about the people and place of North Nashville, the crisis of flooding in North Nashville, a response demo, including a community handout and alert system, and long-term policy asks. So North Nashville is a predominantly Black population with growing Spanish, Kurdish, and Somali communities. It has a rich history as an R&B and jazz epicenter here in Music City. It is low income and has higher than national average poverty rates. There's also a high population of renters, including Section 8 properties that house a large number of low income and disabled Nashvillians. North Nashville is considered disadvantaged using the climate and economic justice screening tool, and also has high social vulnerability using the CDC Social Vulnerability Index. So figure 1 shows Davidson County, and circled in red is North Nashville, with the blue color indicating the highest social vulnerability. So the place of North Nashville is on the bank of the Cumberland River. There's a low-lying and flat area like much of Nashville is. There's also high impermeable surface coverage and limited green space. North Nashville is in close proximity to highway and industries. In fact, Highway I-40 in the 70s was built directly through the neighborhood and really caused some economic devastation. But even prior to that, all the way back to the Civil War era, there's a history of redlining and segregation. And now gentrification is really creeping in and pricing out families that have been in North Nashville for generations. But North Nashville is an incredibly resilient community with a history of storytelling and advocacy. So I'm just going to play this brief clip that really shows the North Nashville spirit.
There's no sound, Mia.
Can you hear, Nicole?
Yeah, there's no
Um,
sound. I think
okay.
no, so if you unshare your screen just before you share, you will see on the right-hand side of your screen, it'll say share sound. You may have to
I
make sure
see.
that box is checked. Yeah.
Do you remember when you were told that the grass is always greener on the other side, that life and water only flow over there? Society has strategically placed definitions of destruction on where and how we're living. From booming business districts to seizing our land, from vibrant communities to now violence and poverty stricken, and sadly, it's all a part of the system.
Okay, so it disabled my mic, so I'm just going to reshare again without sharing audio. Okay, so why focus on flooding? This is an image of North Nashville during the 2010 flood. So in 2010, there was a 100-year rain event that flooded the Cumberland River and caused over $2 billion of damage. And North Nashville, like much of Nashville, is low-lying and flat, but has especially high coverage of impermeable surfaces. So the 2010 flood has been studied quite a bit, and there has been research showing that flooding impacts communities of color and lower income more than white counterparts. Also showed that low-income Black families had less savings and less access to FEMA aid in the wake of the flood. This all accelerated gentrification in the area. So not only is there a historical precedence for flooding, but there is a continued and increasing climate-related flood risk. So the South has seen an upward trend in precipitation that is continuing from, early 1900s through today. And 15% of all properties in North Nashville have a moderate flood risk. But I just want to throw in here that these numbers and projections are often based on FEMA floodplains. And the First Street Foundation did an analysis that found that these kinds of storms that caused the 2010 flood are actually 4 times higher than FEMA projects. And this is really important because FEMA sets the stage for local mitigation and adaptation policies. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in the advocacy asks. So before the storm, this is what I hope for and envision in terms of flood readiness and resilience. This is a community-led model that hopefully would begin with community meetings in North Nashville, bringing together trusted community leaders, the Nashville Office of Emergency Management, NGOs, and community members, especially to give feedback to the OEM where traditionally this community may not have their voices heard, especially when they're giving feedback about emergencies, especially floods. So another important aspect of flood readiness would be electing block captains, and these are community members who are elected and chosen to maintain lists of vulnerable residents, to hand out flyers, to create phone trees, and to really step up in the event of a flood or a disaster. And then the last resilience method or mechanism that I think should be implemented are resilience hubs. And these are places that support communities in times of flooding. They are places of shelter, but also provide year-round benefits to the community. And on the right are just some of the entities that I think would be great partners in these endeavors. So this community handout is something that I'll admit is not the most beautiful because I'm not a graphic designer, but contains a few important things that I think should be present in a community handout like this. So this would be distributed in like online local pages, but also corner stores, barbershops, laundromats, other local high traffic places. As you can see, it's in English and in Spanish, but offers a multilingual component, hoping that OEM, the Nashville Office of Emergency Management, hears our pleas to include Kurdish and Somali languages into alerts so that they can receive life-saving alerts just like English and Spanish speakers. This also highlights the importance of block captains and knowing who is your block captain before an emergency occurs and knowing where your resilience hubs are. So, given hopefully all of that readiness and resilience planning, here's a hypothetical crisis scenario that's similar to the 2010 flood. Nashville's expecting rainfall that could be catastrophic. So the alert system is broken into two parts, the block captains and cell phones. Currently, Nashville only has cell phone alerts, which work if you have a wireless capable phone, but are not all inclusive, which is why the block captain alerts sort of help fill in the gaps, making sure that communities are taking care of themselves and each other. So this is sort of a breakdown of how things would look in normal conditions. Block captains are distributing flyers. In yellow conditions and severe weather alerts, then the alerts are broadcasted in multiple languages. And then during red alerts, there are resilience hubs that open and resources channeled to the community. So I have 5 advocacy asks to accomplish all of the things that I've discussed. The first is infrastructure investment. So I think the Cumberland River Compact, which has a project called Depave Nashville, would be a great partner for something like this. And they could help apply for state water infrastructure grants, all in the hopes of upgrading stormwater drainage and implementing more green infrastructure to help manage stormwater. The second is property acquisition. So this is where I'll bring back the FEMA of it all. So the FEMA floodplains have helped Nashville decide which houses they might actually buy back from people who are in high-risk flood areas. But unfortunately, there are quite a few neighborhoods that do not fall into this floodplain, but still experience flooding during storms. So I think there's a huge role for advocacy here to partner with people like Jonathan Hall, a city councilman, and other NGOs to help expand the definition of who's at risk and therefore who is eligible for home buyback. The third is the aforementioned community resilience hubs. This ties into the local climate adaptation and resilience plan in Nashville and directs funds to churches, schools, and rec centers to not only provide shelter during acute events, but also offers year-round community benefits like job training and health education. The fourth is post-disaster protections, advocating for temporary rent freezes and anti-eviction measures in the hopes of not exacerbating gentrification and community displacement after floods, partnering with places like the Alliance for Affordable Nashville. And the last is sort of an overarching advocacy ask that language access guarantees are in place in all emergency responses, including the Kurdish and Somali residents who don't speak English, as well as boosting the Spanish speaking options across alerts, which are currently lacking. This is life-saving information that should be translated into as many languages as possible. So here is my list of references, and I just wanted to share some good news that I recently found out, which is that the Cumberland River Compact is breaking ground on a deep-paved Nashville project in North Nashville. I don't, since I didn't share my audio, I'll just leave this here, but just some exciting good news that is aligned with what I'm hoping for in the future of North Nashville. Thank
Thanks so
you. That's
much.
all.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Mia. Appreciate you, and I enjoyed reading through um, your project. So we are what, 22 minutes in. I do have a few questions for you, but I will hold those questions until the end so that we can make sure Deanna has enough opportunity to present as well. And I'll ask my questions for both of you at the end. So next up, we have Deonna Brown. Deonna is the National Director of Youth Environmental Justice and Policy uh, of programs at Young, Gifted, and Green, where she leads national initiatives focused on climate justice and policy advocacy. Her work is deeply informed by her lived experience as a Flint, Michigan native and a survivor of the Flint water crisis. Deanna holds a master's in sociology and is currently pursuing a master's in public health. She is also a 2024, excuse me, a 2024 Yale Environmental Fellow and a member of the inaugural Michigan Healthy Climate Corps, dedicated to building equitable and resilient communities. Let's welcome Deanna.
Thank you. So hi everyone, my name is Dionna and I'll be presenting my Flint Climate Resiliency Plan, centered on community-driven emergency response called the Code Red Heat Protocol. So growing up and working in Flint, I've seen firsthand how climate impacts are layered onto existing challenges like housing insecurity, high asthma rates, and an aging infrastructure system. Those experiences inspire me to create a plan that blends public health science, policy advocacy, and community knowledge. So yeah. Okay, here we go. The community risk profile, Flint's risk profile reflects decades of overlapping crises, environmental, social, and infrastructural. Our city has already faced the trauma of the water crisis, and those same systems of divestment now amplify climate risk. The Great Lakes region has warmed about 2.3 degrees Fahrenheit since the 1950s, with extreme heat and precipitation on the rise. In Flint, that means more basement flooding, more power outages, and higher health risk for residents with asthma or chronic illness. North Flint neighborhoods, particularly zip codes 48504 and 48505, face the greatest combined heat and flood risk due to sparse tree canopy, older housing, and energy insecurity. Nearly 4 in 10 residents in Flint live below the poverty line, and this economic vulnerability compounds the climate threats. These realities shape the design of our Code Red protocol and long-term resiliency strategies. So the first 3 steps in the Code Red Heat Plan focus on activation, early warning, and emergency response. A code red is triggered when Flint experiences 2 or more consecutive days above 90 degrees Fahrenheit or when the heat index exceeds 105. At that point, the city office of public health and planning activates the code red response, notifying all partners within 24 hours. Communication is the most critical piece. We know during heat waves, information gaps can cost lives, especially for non-English speaking residents. That's why alerts will go out through multilingual text messages, local radio, and social media. The community's strength is its people. Through a block captain system, trained volunteers will check on 5 to 10 households, making sure that elderly residents and people with disabilities have what they need. Once the plan is active, we can move into action. Cooling centers, including libraries, churches, recreational centers, they extend their hours until 10 p.m. The MTA, which is the Mass Transit Authority, which is our bus system, provides free rides to these locations through a dedicated hotline. And mutual aid groups coordinate with the delivery of water bottle, fans, and portable air conditioners for residents that can't travel. These first 3 steps turn preparedness into community power. They show how Flint can lead with both urgency and compassion. The code red plan also includes flood readiness and trust building, 2 areas that go hand in hand. Because in Michigan, heat waves and heavy storms often arrive together, our preparedness strategy must address both. In the short term, city crews clear storm drains before forecasted storms, and residents report blocked drains using the See Click Fix app. In the long term, we need to retrofit North Flint with bioswales, rain gardens, and permeable pavement, all proven to reduce stormwater overflow and basement flooding, according to the EPA. Transportation resiliency is also crucial. Extreme heat can rock roads and damage bus routes. So the plans calls for collaboration between Flint's Public Works Department and the MTA to strengthen our transportation infrastructure. But just as important as the physical response is the human one. Schools, nonprofits, and faith-based organizations act as resilience hubs, distributing supplies, hosting drills, and helping residents feel safe and informed. Healthcare partners like Hurley Medical Center monitor asthma and heat-related emergency visits so we can track health outcomes and evaluate our progress. Trust is the foundation of this plan. After the water crisis, people need to see transparency and inclusion. That's why residents will co-design and review every code red drill, shaping both the message and the metrics. Preparedness isn't just about surviving, it's about the confidence in our institutions. So advocacy priorities. Advocacy is where preparedness becomes policy. The first pillar of our plan is energy justice. We're calling for legislation to prohibit utility shutoffs during declared summer heat emergencies, similar to winter protections already on the books. We're also urging the state to fund air conditioning installations and expand Michigan's weatherization assistance program to reach renters in older homes. The second pillar focuses on housing rights. A renter cooling rights ordinance will require landlords to provide safe cooling or ventilation. Given Flint's aging housing stock, this could prevent dozens of heat-related hospitalizations each year. Now that the new administration has rolled back the federal Justice 40 initiative, Michigan has its own Justice 40 initiative with the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. But we have to adapt our funding strategy. Flint can no longer rely on federal equity set aside, so our approach shifts to state and local solutions. So we'll pursue grants through the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan, FEMA's BRIC program, and philanthropic partners like Cressy Foundation, Bloomberg Philanthropies, and the Energy Foundation, all of which have expanded their equity portfolio since the rollback. To manage this complex funding environment, I'm proposing the creation of a Flint Climate Resiliency Task Force housed with the House Office of Public Health to coordinate grant writing partnerships and evaluation. This task force could also collaborate with regional coalitions like the Great Lakes Climate Adaptation Network to share data and technical expertise. From a legislative standpoint, we're aligning the state lenders, leaders like Representative Kristen McDonald-Rivet and Senator Alyssa Slotkin, both who supported environmental justice policy in the past. Our community partners will be Michigan League of Conservation Voters, Young, Gifted, and Green, and Flint Neighborhoods United, and they will play a key role in grassroots mobilization. We also anticipate opposition from landlords associations and utility companies worried about retrofit costs. Our strategy is to counter this with evidence, cooling rights, and energy efficiency reduce healthcare costs, and they boost property values and save lives. In a post-Justice 40 era, this plan demonstrates that equity doesn't disappear with the policy. It's something some communities like Flint continue to fight for and build from the ground up. So traditional knowledge integration. So when we talk about climate resiliency, we can't separate science from culture. The traditions that have guided communities for generation are themselves blueprints for survival. From the indigenous Anishinaabe perspective, resiliency is about reciprocity. I can never say that word right. But the belief that when we care for the land cares for us. Those teachings are at the core of Flint's community systems. Our Black captains, mutual aid groups, and youth programs all reflect that shared responsibility. We're also exploring collaboration with tribal partners and seasonal readiness, aligning preparedness drills around ecological markers like the start of Nabu, the summer heat season, when elders traditionally prepare for hotter months. In parallel, Black community traditions have always been rooted in care and faith. Flint churches, for instance, have long served as centers for safety and support, offering food, cooling, and shelter during emergencies. Designated these trusted spaces as official resiliency hubs, equipped with backup generators and supplies, honors that history while building the infrastructure we need today. In short, these traditions show us that resiliency isn't something new for Flint, it's something that we're reclaiming. And these traditions don't just belong in cultural spaces, they belong in planning rooms and policy documents. Flint Resiliency Plan calls for shared knowledge and shared power. That means residents help co-design preparedness drills, youth councils work with elders to preserve community memory, and decision-making isn't confined to City Hall. This approach mirrors the global best practices. In New Zealand. The Maori used tsunami stones to warn future generations about coastal risk. Across the Pacific, indigenous engineers built flood-resistant homes using natural materials and generational experiences. As Ragwala and colleagues note, integrating traditional knowledge with the modern science leads to solutions that are both culturally grounded and scientifically sound. Flint can lead by example in the Great Lakes region by embedding these insights directly into our city and state climate frameworks. Ultimately, the goal is to ensure that when policies are written and programs are funded, they reflect not just data, but lived wisdom of the people most affected by climate change. So, in conclusion, Flint's resiliency story is one of strength, recovery, and collective care. We face extraordinary challenges, and each one has revealed both the gaps in our system and the community and the power within our community. This plan recognizes that climate resiliency is community resiliency. It's not just about infrastructure or emergency alerts, it's about trust, equity, and a relationship that keeps people safe. When neighbors check on neighbors, when church open their doors as cooling hubs, and when youth take leadership in preparedness, that's resilience in action. But we also need structural support. That's why our next steps focus on policy and coordination, advancing energy justice and renter cooling rights legislation, and creating a Flint climate resilience task force to oversee grants, partnerships, and progress tracking. Our goal is measurable change, fewer heat-related ER visits, more residents accessing cooling centers, and annual resilience reports that keep our leaders accountable. I want to close with this reminder: resiliency isn't a government program, it's a community promise. It's a promise that we will protect one another, invest in justice, and rebuild trust together. Flint has already shown the world what endurance looks like. Now we're showing what preparedness, advocacy, and hope looks like. And these are my references. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deanna. I appreciate both you and Mia. So my first question is a question that I would love for both of you guys to answer because I love how both of you decided to employ the block captain model, which I think is great. So, from each of you, can you walk me through what you're thinking about in terms of recruitment efforts, ongoing training, and potential compensation for those roles? And then how are you going to ensure that it isn't an unsustainable plan and doesn't have a significant burden on the volunteers who volunteered as block captains?
Okay, I can go first. So the Black Nashville Assembly has a infrastructure in place for things like this, including they have a block captain system. It doesn't seem very built out, but they do have kind of the foundation for that. So I think they would be a great partner in helping sort of find structure and also engage the community. In terms of funding, I was imagining this more as a volunteer position, but kind of housed within the OEM meetings and other community-based meetings that are going on. And in terms of keeping it sustainable, I think the volunteer thing is part of that. It's people sort of passing the baton and wanting to take care of their community. And also, if the Black Nashville Assembly has the capacity to provide funding and training, they could really kind of help keep the program alive and functioning.
Thank you, Mia. Deanna?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, having it a volunteer position, but if funding came in, they could get compensated for that. Regards to recruitment and training, that would be from trusted organizations already in the community. So faith-based organizations, environmental nonprofits, or even non-environmental nonprofits, people who really see people who see leaders in the community, see if they will be interested in these positions, or even recommending people that could be in those positions in their neighborhoods. And it comes to training, hopefully, the city will provide that training. Given, we do have an Office of Public Health, just seeing how, heat-related illnesses is a public health issue, and how it's an environmental issue as well, as, the planet is heating and it's not cooling. Just having that knowledge from them will help with the training and sustainability. I would try to implement maybe surveys at the end of each summer. Well, the heat goes on a little bit longer than the summer. Well, it did this year. It was hot in October this year, which is crazy in Michigan. But climate change. But after the heat is done, maybe, doing a survey, see like how we can improve from the block captain, so it can be a sustainable program and we can improve every year.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Deanna. Um, so Mia, I do have one other question for you. It's more about measuring the impacts of of your plan. So when your plan is fully implemented, how will you measure and know that it's working? And then maybe what are 2 to 3 metrics that you would track over the next 2 to 5 years to measure success?
Yeah, so I think one metric that is pretty closely looked at is the displacement of families of color from that neighborhood. So I would keep an eye on that over, the course of a couple of years, especially after a flood event, which is not just these devastating floods, but we have storms that come through that cause flooding all the time. So sort of keeping track of those flood events, and then any measured displacement. Um, can you remind me what you had asked? So that's like sort of how to keep track of, how to measure success in general.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think the turnout to community engaged events and facilitated meetings between OEM, other organizations who I envision participating, like Tennessee State University. I think the number of block captains that volunteer and then the number that remain over the course of a few years, those are great ways to measure the success. I think also surveys and community feedback. The block captains worked, it didn't work. I don't know who my block captain is, or my block captain called me when it was raining really hard and checked on me. I think hearing from the community about how it actually went into place for them is a huge way to measure. And then I would say any of the policy asks, like, did we win a stormwater grant? Did we kind of reframe where the FEMA floodplains and how to determine who's eligible for home buybacks? So yeah, I think several ways to measure success.
Thank you for that. Before I ask the two of you my last question, I wanted to ask Tamara or Vanessa if they have any questions for you.
No questions here, but fantastic presentations on both sides.
Thanks, Vanessa. Tamara, any questions from you?
No questions from me either, but it was a great presentation, especially excited about the information being shared about the climate resilience hubs and things. I appreciate that.
Great, thank you. So, Deanna, one question for you. It's about the addressing the trust deficit with the public, right? So you mentioned, and rightfully so, there's a deep distrust of from the public of the government. So beyond using trusted community anchors, what specific tangible steps could you use to build into what is it, the Code Red protocol and the block captain system to ensure um, that they are community owned and governed rather than just another like top-down program? So for instance, could residents help co-design evaluation metrics? What other ideas do you have there?
Yes, so I would want the community to be in partnership with this program in all steps. So this wouldn't be a program without them, just dealing with all the distrust we have had in our community. And also, so they're designing the metrics, they're designing the survey questions, they're designing the program itself. So we have the idea, but they're giving us their feedback at every step, and we will implement listening sessions as well, so we can get feedback on the plan and we can implement what they are thinking about the plan, thinking about the program. At all steps, so they can have a say. And like I said, this is really community based. And then also holding our government officials accountable. And I believe this program would hold our government officials accountable, just because they have not taken any accountability for what has happened in the past, especially with the Flint water crisis. So making sure we're working right, like in collaboration with the government. So they're not telling us what to do, but we're telling them what to do. Because ultimately, when it comes to that, like we pay their salary, we're taxpayers. So, same with our elected officials. So really just holding them accountable for this plan, making sure that this is, like I said, this is community based and this is for the community by the community, but we have that government backing with the funding.
Thank you so much. Thank you both so much. I appreciate it. Again, excellent presentations by both of you. I enjoyed reading um, through your presentation. Well, not your presentations, through your assignments and proposals for each of your communities. So, but those are all the questions that I have. So, if you don't have any questions for me or maybe questions for each other, um, I am happy for us to end and say thanks a bunch.
I did have one thing. I saw your note about my reference, and I messed up on my reference. It was by the Department of Transportation. That's who funded the program. So I cited them, but it was actually with different authors.
Oh, okay, nice. All right, thank you. Appreciate it. All right,
Okay, well, thank you.
you're
I just want to
welcome.
say
Thanks so much,
thanks. I want to
Mia.
say Deanna did a great job. I really appreciated you framing it in a post-Justice 40 lens. That kind of inspired me to go back and want to look at my plan through that lens and see sort of what was reliant or would be reliant traditionally on federal funds and how to really shift to local and state. I think kind of a local flood risk is already sort of um, state and local government, but there are certain things that we've relied on the federal government for in the past that just won't be available. So I appreciated you framing it like that.
Excellent. Thank you both so much. Appreciate both of you, and hope to keep you both engaged if you so choose to want to stay engaged with us.
Yes, gladly. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Bye. Take care.